Hello and welcome. My name is Adrena. I am the owner and accountant here at Accounting by Adrena. And welcome to another day in my life of a small business owner, a CEO, an accountant, a bookkeeper, all of the things. If you're new here, I'm so glad to have you here. I'm just going to give you a quick update about my business and goals and just things that are going on over in my neck of the woods. If you scroll back on my videos, you'll see that I have a lot of different routine videos over the years, and my routine has shifted and changed based on the season, based on how things are going in my life, how things are going with my business. And so I'm just giving you an update to basically, this is a general day in my life. I'm doing a lot of the same things that I normally do on a day-to-day basis in this video. The difference is I have woven into my routine more of a health and wellness kind of balance. So I've got more movement going on in my day, and you'll see that happening throughout the day in between client meetings or in between my work. And so I just thought I would bring you along because this is a little bit different from my past day in the life videos. Obviously, we're getting started with the day, although I think I forgot to film breakfast on this day, so I must have had breakfast before I got ready for my day. But I like to do a light makeup routine so that I just feel a little bit more alive. Depending on the day and when I need to start my client meetings, I do a bunch of different types of morning routines. Sometimes I journal, sometimes I read, sometimes I meditate, sometimes I do all three. Sometimes it doesn't even happen and I end up watching a quick Netflix 30-minute kind of show in the morning before I start my day. And it really just depends on things that are coming down the pipeline for that particular day. So actually on this particular day, it was the first of the month, and I had a couple of meetings, and I also had a meeting to finalize a contract with a new client. So I'll just jump right into my updates for Q1. So in Q1, I actually ended up offboarding two of my clients that I've had for a really long time, just different things. One of them was outgrowing me, which is great. I'm always in support of finding what works for you. Obviously, bookkeeping with me was working for them for a time, and now they had to move on. And then a second client of mine just had other revenue issues, and so they had to cut a lot of their expenses, which is obviously sad because working with the client for a long period of time, you get to know them and you build a rapport with them. And so unfortunately, that was the way that client had to go. What is interesting about all of this is that while I was offboarding these two clients of mine, I ended up onboarding two other clients. So that worked out in that sense. And I have been just onboarding them over the past couple of months, and so that has kept me pretty busy. But it really has been a pleasure working with these new clients, onboarding them, and creating systems for their business. For one of my clients, it's an individual consultant person, and so she has a lot of billing that happens on a monthly, quarterly, semi-annual basis. And she hasn't really had a lot of systems created yet, so this is my opportunity to help her create some systems in her business. And then for another client, it's another nonprofit organization, and so they also had been lacking in their systems, and so it's really interesting to come in and help create these processes and systems for these organizations that haven't had any structure. And so it's got to do a lot of training, it's got to do a lot of hand holding, but it's part of the joy that I find in working one-on-one with these clients. In fact, for the nonprofit organization, they didn't really have a lot of electronic processes. Everything was pretty much paper processes. And so I had to create a semblance of an electronic process for them when it comes to donations and donors and things like that. We did a lot of good work in creating a process. And so we're just at this point where we're shoring up the process now and making sure that everyone knows what they are responsible for and what they need to do. So it's been a really interesting time to think in larger picture and then in step-by-step ways so that we can optimize their workflow. Usually on really busy work days, I like to take mini breaks throughout my day, like whether it's after a meeting or after some client work, just to break up my day. Otherwise, it's going to be really easy for me just to sit there all day and work. So this helps my physical health, it helps my mental health. So on this particular day, it is a little bit chilly, so I'm making myself a hot tea. So I just rotate whether if it's like hot tea or hot coffee, water, electrolyte drink, just whatever suits my fancy for that particular day. So for this one, I will let it steep while I use my walking pad for a little bit. So that's another thing that I like to do, maybe 10 minutes at a time or 15 minutes, 20, 30, whatever time that I have in between things. I like to use that time to either use my walking pad or take a quick stroll around my apartment. And for these types of walks, I usually just set an alarm for however long I have for that break. So whether it's 10 minutes, I'll just set the alarm for 10 minutes and do the walking pad or walk around my apartment and then go back to work. I feel like I am always looking for ways to build into my workday some sort of way to optimize either like my work performance or my process. And that actually goes for my clients as well, because I like to think in terms of the broader system, the people who are involved, and making sure that is everyone who has to be communicated to or has to have a part in the process is part of that process. So sometimes it's really hard when there are one organization with only one person, then it's just basically going to fall on to that one person. So that's actually really important for nonprofit organizations. That's why it's important for nonprofit organizations to have volunteers, because they just don't have the means or the funds to hire a bunch of people to fill in all these gaps. If you haven't already volunteered for a nonprofit, I would highly recommend seeking out a nonprofit in your area and using some of your time to volunteer and help them out, because they are the ones who need it the most. On in terms of nutrition for myself is getting enough protein, fiber, and iron in my diet. So I definitely need to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on iron and fiber, because my levels were low this year and I felt like I was doing so good, and then we tested it again and it was low. I'm doing a lot of changes to make sure that I can increase that, and we'll go back in a couple months to do like the blood test again to see if the things that I've been doing have improved my levels. So I feel like for a lot of women, iron levels tend to run low in general. But yeah, so I think just focusing on what you feel is best for yourself to make you happy and healthy, I think that's just going to go a long way for health and longevity. So I have really been focusing this year on what you see basically is like my updated health routine. So like getting a lot of steps in during the day. My goal is to get 4,000 steps, which seems low, but that's low compared to no steps. So that's high compared to no steps. Just like making small changes like that every single week has been really helpful. And I am also working on doing my weights and doing yoga and going on some longer walks a few times during the week. So that is all contributing to what I would say is making me a healthier person. One of those other things that I've been doing every so often is getting like a factor box or getting like a home chef box or just like one of those kinds of things every so often. I think that really helps in terms of reducing decision fatigue, because that can come especially like when I am trying to manage all these other things in life and with our home and making sure I'm getting my nutrition. There's just so many decisions that need to be made throughout the day that it's just so nice to have like a fully ready meal in your fridge. And obviously this is absolutely not sponsored. This is actually what happened this day, is that I randomly got a factor box. You'll see me unboxing that in a little bit. And I did have, I think for lunch it was a home chef meal as well. So yeah, that's really helpful. And then that way I can focus on other things that need my attention and decisions throughout the day. So honestly, that has been my focus as a CEO, is just pouring into myself as a person and making sure I can be the healthiest version of myself. And then even you'll see for dinner, I had this idea in mind of doing Spanish rice in the rice cooker. So this was my attempt at Spanish rice in the rice cooker, and I feel like it came out pretty good, honestly. So anyways, yeah, that's what you'll see later for in terms of dinner. But anyway, in terms of the CEO focus that I've been doing for the first and second quarter of this year is just really pouring into myself. And with bringing on two new clients, it's a lot of work in general. So a lot of my capacity is drained by the end of the day. I also have two other clients that I haven't mentioned that are extremely busy during the season. And one client has an annual audit that we're working on, and then another client has just other components of their business that have been just thriving. And so they have been extremely busy. So those take a lot of my capacity and a lot of my time. And so by the end of the day, like if I don't have something already in mind to cook, it's nice to have a factor meal ready and available. But as you can see in my office, I did do some like office reorganization. I feel like I reorganized my workspace for better productivity for myself, and it has been so good because this way I can use my walking pad as often as I like. And I have been doing that, and I think that's so great. So I'm definitely getting enough use out of it. And honestly, like if I am a happier person, then that flows onto my happier and healthier person. That flows onto my work, that flows onto my clients. And so hopefully this comes off as an encouragement to you to focus on your health as well, because I think it's just really the more you pour into yourself and like your nutrition and your health habits, like the more it's going to flow out of you in terms of like your family or your workspace or whatever that looks like for you. So, anyways, I hope that comes off as an encouragement and not as some sort of like guilt trip or something like that. But yeah, these are just like tiny little things that I do throughout the day that I think help me feel my best, and it helps me become a healthier and happier person. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching my day in the life video. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos, and drop a comment below and let me know what is one thing that you are doing for yourself in terms of becoming a healthier and happier person. I would love to hear back from you. If you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, please do so with the link in my description box, and I will see you in the next video.